Hello, folks, and welcome to another episode of the Rangers Review. This time it's not a morning briefing, it's an evening chat with myself, Jonny McFarlane, and joining me from Bilbao, Spain, is the one and only Joshua Barrie. Josh, how are things out there in Bilbao?
Yeah, fine. Good evening to you, Jonny, and everyone else. Things are fine here. People can obviously see the San Mames, I think it's pronounced, stadium behind me, where tomorrow's game will take place. Impressive venue, only built in 2013, holds 53,000 people. And anyone who's watched a bit of Athletic Bilbao recently, which I'm sure a lot of those watching on will have, it looks loud on TV, Jonny, and you can see why when you're in the stadium. Really steep. The fans are pretty on top of the players, despite it being a kind of modern bowl-like stadium. And I think it's a brilliant venue for what's going to be a big game tomorrow. Heard from both the camps today, as we'll get into. And such a huge game. This is obviously where the final will be housed. And a nice line from James Tavernier in his press conference, who said, "We've had a lovely walk out of the stadium. We want to come back here for the final." That will certainly be Rangers' intention here tomorrow night.
Yes, absolutely would be. Josh, just on the stadium, it looks like a fantastic occasion or a fantastic place for a big occasion. Will we be seeing a massive atmosphere there tomorrow night, do you think?
I think we'll be seeing a massive atmosphere. Yeah, certainly, like being around the city, listening to the Athletic press conference today, there's so much pressure on them because it's a home final. Now, you've got to remember that they hadn't won a trophy in 40 years up until the Copa del Rey, which, yes, somewhat broke a duck, but having the final here, the opportunity to win a European trophy, I think that obviously can work for them. And Ernesto Valverde, their coach, has been quite diplomatic about that fact. We saw it in the previous round against Roma too, where they lost away from home. And I don't know if you saw this clip, Jonny, but the captain, whose name escapes me, and Inaki Williams, actually had to go over to the away fans in Rome, despite the fact it was only the first leg, and almost kind of remonstrate with them a bit and calm them down. Such, I think, is the pressure on this team to win the competition. They finished joint top. I don't think it's a coincidence that Barry Ferguson has called them favourites before this game and before the first leg too. So expect a big atmosphere. But as we'll come on to speak about, if you listen to what Barry Ferguson had to say in terms of what he's given away about how Rangers might approach this game, I think you're going to see an away side that are going to try and frustrate this home team as much as possible. This home crowd, as much as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Oscar DeMarcos is the captain of Athletic Club. I didn't know that. I just Googled it. Just so you know, don't be thinking that I have any facts at hand. Josh, in terms of the pressers, let's touch first of all on Valverde's comments today. Interesting in terms of a lot of respect for Rangers, a lot of respect for individual players who he signalled out. It's not that common for a manager to do that. Both Cyril Dessers and Vaclav Cherny both given a very good write-up.
Yeah, they were. He called Cyril Dessers a beacon, which is not a football compliment I've heard before. But I think what he was trying to insinuate is, and it's something we've spoken about a lot, as to why is Dessers playing ahead of Igaman, why is he playing in this competition? Because he runs beyond, and that's what he was kind of insinuating. He's their focal point, the reference point in terms of Dessers runs up front. I also asked Barry Ferguson about that Dessers-Igaman comparison, and he had some interesting things to say on Hams, which we'll maybe come into. And then Cherny, I think the phrase he used to describe him was a bullet. Certainly, if you look at the last round and Rangers in Europe in general, they've only lost away from home in the Europa League once. That was in the last minute against Manchester United. And to repeat an old point, they are a team who look much more comfortable playing into space. They're a team who look much more comfortable, I think, when space has to make the decisions for them. And Cherny's been impactful domestically, and we know Dessers scores goals domestically as well, sporadically. But the game over in Istanbul, I thought, epitomised both of them at their best. Cherny able to drop into the pockets, he has space to run into. I think he's a more dangerous runner in transition than when he's up against a packed defence. I don't think he's quite as effective there. So a lot of respect, as you say, from Valverde. And as I keep coming back to, a lot of pressure from the home media about how he try and manage the expectations. There was talk of, and I'm not sure in the exact details, but the fans gathering earlier in the day somewhere in Bilbao just to try and build the atmosphere for the team, which he was insisting we need to use that as a positive. This can go for us and not against us. And Rangers' intent, I think, will be trying to turn that as much as possible in tomorrow's tie.
Okay, and in terms of Barry, what did you make of what he had to say? Seemed to be in pretty confident mood and pretty good form.
Yeah, he was a lot of, maybe not a lot of, but a few interesting points that stood out to me. He says he's picked his team. He says the team knows what the team is. I don't think that's always been customary in his management, from what I know so far, to tell the team who is starting the day before in the game. So there's maybe something to read into there. I actually thought he gave a little bit away, Jonny, in terms of how his team are going to approach the game tomorrow. Not that it's a surprise. He effectively talked about the fact that they'll need discipline. If one person doesn't do their jobs, they'll punish you. I think he's talking about sitting back in that low block, that line of five, and trying to then attack Bilbao into space, which is, again, pretty customary. But he gave more away than maybe we've been used to so far. Also spoke about Hamza Gaman, why he has so much to improve on and work on. Asked him about that decision he has at number 9 in terms of who he picks between Cyril Dessers and Hamza Gaman. No conversation around the goalkeeper, a lot of references to Manchester 2008 and the ability to go and, I guess, make history. But I think, I was just writing this before I came on the stream, Jonny, Rangers' entire season has been spent trying to answer the question, why are they so good in Europe compared to the league? And for once, they don't need to try and resolve that or fix it or answer it tomorrow. They just need that pattern to continue, because they should come here confident. They finished in the top 8, they played 4 in the top 8, and they've shown in the games against Manchester United and Spurs in particular that they can compete with the very best. But what you would say is they'll need to replicate that and probably give a little bit more, because although Athletic weren't great in the first leg, you'd suspect if the game goes how they want it to, they'll have a lot more to show here tomorrow night.
Interesting point from a null FNC in the comments, Josh. He says he answered your question about Hamza, talking about Barry, with 3 words of compliment and 19 of praise or something. Think Dessers confirmed. I have to say, I listened to that just before we came on and I thought exactly the same thing.
Yeah, so wait, say again, you thought that it meant that Dessers was going to play,
yeah?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's about trust at this stage. And for better or for worse, that's what you've seen throughout his management so far. We've spoken a lot about the fact that, okay, there's been young players starting to come into the team. Finlay Curtis had his first start. Bailey Rice had his first European start last week. But generally, it's been Dessers favoured in that number 9 spot. And Hamza Gaman started at number 9, Jonny, away at Aberdeen. Was his first start at number 9. If you're being pernickety about, where he actually played on the pitch, it was the first time he'd really properly led the line since a home tie against Aberdeen on January 15th. Now, I think for all that he has to work on his game, and I'm sure he does, that's not an excuse for him to not play in his favourite position because of the need to develop a key asset and the potential that he has. But equally, I think what Dessers gives you as a manager, and there's a reason that he's been trusted right throughout his Rangers career, is he carries out tactical instructions well, he presses well, he leads the line well. And what I keep coming back to, no one else in this Rangers team wants to run beyond. And Egerman probably falls into that. He wants to get the ball to feet. The game away in Nice, I think, gives some sort of demonstration of what he can do in Europe when he leads the line on his own. We saw it at Old Trafford too. We saw it at Tottenham. If it was home to Tottenham, if it was up to me, I think Egerman gives you more. And you saw that from the bench last week. But Dessers has been Ferguson's man in every single game, bar that game of the weekend against Aberdeen, which you presume was for rotation purposes. And in agreement with you in the comment, I think, again, that gave away that Barry Ferguson knows who's going to start at number 9 tomorrow and is more likely to be Cyril Dessers than Hamza Gaman.
Is there a sense that if it all goes wrong with Dessers, Josh, that Barry will get a little bit of heat, that he'll be under a little bit of pressure? Given the way Egerman has played, given what we've discussed on here for the last couple of weeks about what Egerman brings to the table in terms of holding the ball up and giving you an out ball, something that Dessers doesn't really do.
Yeah, I think there will be, much like last week, and he's clearly not afraid to make harsh decisions, and you saw that with Kelly and Butland last week. Because if Kelly had come in and had a difficult game, even though Butland had been so poor for a few weeks domestically, in Europe I think he's generally been fine. He's not had as many mistakes leading to goals. We've spoken about his performance in Fenerbahce, away at Fenerbahce, which I thought was pretty good. So if it was up to me, I think that, and most people, I think Higuaín, as you say, gives you more. And it's interesting to me how every manager has this. Every manager has favourites, and I think every manager will have certain players who they maybe don't see their faults, because Ferguson's spoken about a lot of players' faults, but he's not spoken about Cyril Dessers. Now, he obviously has a lot of qualities, and he scores goals, and it's an argument that we have all the time. But clearly he's someone who, I keep going back to that word, he trusts. And I think in an arena like this tomorrow, that's what he will be banking on. The biggest issue I think Rangers have had consistently when Dessers has led the line is that they've not been able to get up the pitch through an opponent's press. They were, a game like Fenerbahce, where I think they're just not as good at pressing high up the pitch. They're obviously not as good a team as Athletic Bilbao. I think that's mitigated somewhat because you can be more direct to get forward. Here, I think Bilbao are just almost too good off a team off the ball to see the exact same approach that worked in Fenerbahce work here. But you never know, because equally Rangers did cause them a few problems in transition last week, and that was with 10 men. So you will live or die by these decisions. And if you were to ask me now, it's probably going to be Dessers and Czerny as your front two.
Yeah. Personally, wasn't impressed with Bilbao. Watching them with my own eyes at Ibrox last week, Josh, I was really fearing the worst. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's probably terrible. But I really didn't think they were any great shakes compared to the build-up that were given, the assessments that had been made from people in the know in Spain. We've seen some right good teams against Rangers over these last few years in the Europa League. And to me, they weren't a patch on, for example, Leipzig. If you look at all the players that have left that Leipzig team and gone on to better things since then, to me, I wasn't that impressed. Now, this is going to get clipped up and put back to me on Friday, and I don't want to know. I don't care. You can get your, you can stick all that in the bin, but I'm confident, Josh. I don't know why. I don't know where it's come from. I can't back it up with any hard facts. All I can say is from that 90 minutes, I think Rangers, with 11 men, if they're playing to their potential, can cause this team problems. And here is some other positivity in the comments. Stuart Shreenan says, hat-trick for Dessers. Cooper's left foot said, 3 teams we played in the quarterfinals make the fact that we got here even more special. Josh, do you have a bit of confidence? Do you feel that kind of sense that something special could be brewing the same way you did when you were out in actually you weren't out in Braga, it was Derek, but when Rangers faced Braga in 2022?
It feels like a different run to me, because the road to Seville was all about Ibrox and was all about, was it back to the group stage? Even if you think of Giovanni Van Bronckhorst's first game, that Sparta Prague game, there was a big atmosphere that night at Ibrox. I think it was Sparta, it was Slavia was the year before. And then obviously right through the group stage, they had Dortmund away, but aside from that, it was Braga at home, it was Red Star at home, it was obviously Leipzig at home. Whereas this run so far, it's been about Rangers away. They've obviously won away in Nice. They're, I think, very unlucky at Old Trafford. They've won away early on in Malmo when that looked like a difficult tie. Istanbul, another win off the top of my head, which I can't think. Someone can tell me in the comments. There's not been as many of those, and the way that the Fenerbahce tie fell, it wasn't a kind of rousing home occasion, home atmosphere. So that's what I think will give them a lot of optimism coming here tomorrow. They've only lost to United in the last minute in a game they really shouldn't have. If you think of how they finished that game, they had so many young players on the pitch, they just scored. It was a bit of a freaky nature, and you think back to Dessers' goal on that night, which probably should have earned the draw. So, and
a calamitous goalkeeping error.
Yeah, exactly. So they have every right to be confident, and this is just again, for better or worse, I think this is the game that has tended to suit them when they are the underdogs a little bit. Maybe not in recent Old Firm games, but generally in Europe, it's an old pattern. It's been a number of years. This is not isolated to this season by any means. If Inaki Williams is out, and he is a doubt, but there is still a possibility he could train tonight, which suggests that it's not out with the realms of possibility he plays. That would be a boost for Rangers, and I agree with you. I don't think Athletic were overly impressive in that game at Ibrox. They still should have won if you look at maybe how many chances they created on the night. but keeping them quiet here, I think, is a different test. So I'm optimistic. I'm still somewhere in the middle because I think you have to keep so much quality quiet in order to make it to the final four. But in terms of an opportunity, if you'd given Rangers this last week 0-0, even if it was just 11 men, I think they'd have taken it because they'd have been confident that going away from home, that's been their real strength in Europe this season, and they have an opportunity to do something really special here tomorrow night.
If Inaki Williams doesn't make it, Josh, do we have any idea what they'll do? Could they push the other Williams brother over to the right and then maybe bring in this Alex Bergen? I can't pronounce the name, Bergener, who I thought was actually really good when he came on, although he missed the penalty. Bergener. I thought he was have some serious problems.
Yeah, and Aki, the Williams brothers switch quite a lot. You'll see them switch in games. I think that's just something they're free to do, and it maybe gives whoever the fullback is on each side just a problem to constantly think about. The player that Nico Williams is obviously the player that is the one that's going to go for a lot of money, and he's the one that can name on everyone's lips in European football, or certainly was last summer. Still only 22 years old. Sunset had quite a quiet game, the number 8 last week, but he's the one, especially here, if Rangers are camped around the box, the thing to watch out for is the cut-back crosses. 15 of the 19 goals that Bilbao had scored prior to coming to Ibrox last week in the Europa League were crosses. They're brilliant at it, and it's not just because they have this wide individual threat of either of those Williams brothers could score, probably going either way on either foot, but they also have the physical presence of Sanadi in the box, but more often than not, rather than the kind of direct crosses, which is what Fenerbahce were trying to do, swing it in for the aerial presence of Dzeko or Talisca or others from the left in particular. It's those cut-back crosses to the edge of the box that the Sunset is so effective at getting on the end of. So they've got to keep a lot of quality quiet here tomorrow night. I think it will probably be Ridvan right wing back, Tavernier right centre back. But the question is, do you need Tavernier to carry up the pitch a little bit? I tend to think so, but if you do that, it means a start for Clinton and Ciala in a big game. So a lot of big decisions for Barry Ferguson to weigh up, but they're definitely going to come and sit in. That was he wasn't even trying to hide that in his press conference, and I don't think it's the wrong approach given the storm that Rangers are going to have to get through, which they will if they're going to make it into the final four.
A lot of positivity in the comments, Josh. Neil McLean saying we can do this if all our players are on it. We won't get away with many mistakes. Neil is one of our members, so thank you for that, Neil, for joining the membership club, and it gives you priority comments, which is why I read that one out. Finally, Josh, just before you go, let's just touch on a piece that's on the Rangers Review today. Very briefly, a comment from Maka saying, is this the game to bring Butland in, Jonny? We both had our say on this. I'm saying absolutely not. Kelly's earned his spot. He was excellent at Ibrox. I thought not just the penalty save, which is the headline-grabbing moment. There was that wonderful save from the header where he clasped the ball out of mid-air. It was an old-fashioned spectacular save, that, but also the fact that not only did he save it, but he kept hold of it in a moment of extreme pressure. And then there was a couple other great saves as well, peppered around his performance. So for me, absolutely Kelly has to start. The other reason is just from self-preservation point of view from the coach. I think if Barry was to throw back the old keeper into the mix and Butland, I think if a mistake was made, Barry would very much be the man that was getting blamed for that. And I don't think that's ideal for a manager. I think you look to Kelly there, because if he makes a mistake, ultimately Barry can say, well, I've now had 2 keepers that have made mistakes. What can I do? It's the keepers that I've inherited. You have a different take. Just briefly outline yours.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree with you, but what I would say in that is I don't think, because last week, again, if you put Liam Kelly in for that huge game and he made an error, that would have been on Barry Ferguson's head. So I don't think he will consider at all the outside noise, and that's a healthy thing, because as soon as managers start to do that, and they do, let's not kid ourselves, I think they're playing catch up with themselves. I've got a little bit of a foot in both camps. However, if it was up to me, I think I maybe would bring Jack Butland back in, and here is why, as the angry comments get going. Liam Kelly was really good last week. Probably actually brilliant last week is a better word for it. I actually kind of have the view that he's better with the ball at his feet, certainly better inviting pressure than Jack Butland. I think that's a weakness in his game. makes that save from the corner, a number of other moments. Maybe you could say for the goal that was offside that Athletic eventually got a penalty for, he was a little bit slow off his line, but that's probably being hypercritical. I just think tomorrow night you need absolutely everyone at the best, and you need everyone at their top levels, and Butland's top level is higher than Kelly's top level. Now, has he hit that top level, and are you going to guarantee it? No, absolutely not. I would say it's been better in European football than it has been in domestic football. So that's my slight concern. Is Liam Kelly a better goalkeeper than Jack Butland? No. Is this version of Liam Kelly better than Butland has been in domestic competition? Yes. But if you have the option of getting Butland near his peak performance, I think he helps you more on a night like tomorrow night. So I realise it's not an ideal situation if you bring him back in, because there will be this. You almost create more pressure for him by bringing him back into the team when Liam Kelly hasn't made the mistake. And perhaps it will be another one of these decisions that Barry Ferguson just thinks, you know what, Kelly's been good, he doesn't merit coming out. But he's got to look at it, I think, in isolation and pick his strongest team as he will. He wasn't bringing, he said, Jack Butland out the team in order to make Kelly the number one. He was taking Jack Butland out the team to give him a bit of respite, hopefully get him back to his best form. And I just wonder if he had tomorrow night in mind when he made that decision.
Yeah, it's interesting, Josh. I thought this was a straightforward one. I was a bit questioning, I think, when you said to me that this was something you wanted to do, but the comments back it up. They back you up. A lot of people saying Butland should come back in, and a lot of people backing Kelly. It seems quite split as to how that is in the wider support. I don't know, but certainly in the comments tonight, there's a lot of people saying the benefits of both. And to me, that tells us it's a bit of a poser, that one, and it'll be really interesting to see where Barry goes with it. Listen, though, we've done 20 minutes, Josh. I think you're probably going to get chased out of that stadium by an angry Spaniard. So probably best to let you press on and get on with your evening. What's next for Mr. Barry? Is it a well-deserved glass of sangria and some tapas?
Yeah, finish a bit of work and maybe. Well, I've not had a drink in a good number of, I think, months now. So
forgetting that.
When in Rome and all that, I might. I'm not sure, but we're going to go and watch football. See if Madrid can do the comeback, and get ready for tomorrow. Derek Clark is jetting in. He had some airline issues, but I think he's getting in tonight as well. So catch up.
So are you meeting up with him, or is it a friend of podcast Adam Thornton who's been sending me delicious and agonising photographs of incredible food in Bilbao, which has left me thoroughly sick?
No, I'm sure. I think we will all be together at some point later on, presuming Derek does make it in, because last time I heard from him there was an issue with his plane, much as I had the day before. So we'll see, but we'll be live hopefully from some nice Spanish cafe tomorrow morning to bring people some more on the day build up. I'm sure Derek will have some hot takes motivated by the Spanish sun.
Fantastic. So you're doing it together at some Spanish cafe tomorrow. God help them.
That's the plan. Presume. But as people will know, and we try and do this out and about sometimes, the signal can be difficult. So we'll see. Tune in the morning to find out.
Yeah, it'll be fantastic. A pair of Basque James Richardson sitting in the sun. Nice wee cup of coffee, maybe some, I don't know, what's a Basque breakfast thing? Is it do they eat croissants in the Basque country, or do they have their own?
I think so. I think it'll be quite often in Spain you get the kind of orange juice coffee and like a croissant sort of
pastry.
Triad. So maybe we can make that part of the show.
The croissant's kind of universal. They have croissants in Italy. They have croissants in Spain. The French have done well with that. It's hard to beat. Right, listen, Josh, thank you and good night, everyone. Thank you for watching. If you like what we do and you want to support us any further, we've got a great deal on the website at the moment. It's £1 for 6 months. And I'm saying that just as a woman stands behind Josh, and I can tell she's saying, when are you going to get out of this stadium? So at that, thank you very much and goodbye.